March 1997. Former U.S. Secretary of State James Baker III is appointed the United Nations Secretary General's personal envoy to Western Sahara, seeking to end a conflict that has festered since Morocco annexed and claimed the territory in 1975. Would Western Sahara become an independent state or remain a part of Morocco? April 1997. Baker tours North African capitals for initial one-to-one consultations with the parties Morocco, Frente, Polisario, Algeria, Mauritania, on solutions to the Western Sahara conflict. All stated continued commitment to a referendum as the appropriate means to resolve the conflict and determine Western Sahara's final status. June 1997. Baker mediates the first direct talks between the parties in Lisbon, Portugal, securing agreement on the location of voter identification centers and on how to deal with the contested tribes, whose right to vote in the referendum was disputed. September 1997. After lengthy negotiations in Houston, Texas, Baker successfully mediates the signing of the Houston Accords. This agreed a new timeline to prepare and organize a referendum, resume registration of voters, resolve outstanding refugee issues, troop confinement, and a code of conduct in the run-up to the vote. January 1998. In a sign of renewed optimism, UN Secretary General Kofi Annan states that the Western Sahara referendum could take place as early as December 1998. February 1998. Confidence fades fast, as it becomes clear that the Houston Accords Code of Conduct has been violated. Baker travels to Rabat seeking to convince King Hassan II that Morocco could lose the referendum and that they would be better served by offering a credible autonomy plan for Western Sahara. Morocco refuses. November 1998. With successive delays to the registration of voters to participate in the referendum, Annan travels to meet Morocco and the Frente Polisario to propose a package deal to expedite registration of the contested voters. Morocco refuses, and both parties continue to obstruct the registration process. March 1999. In the latest round of shuttle diplomacy, Baker succeeds in persuading Morocco and the Frente Polisario to agree to a redesigned package deal, but in principle only. The language in the new deal is vague, particularly surrounding the appeals procedure for voters deemed ineligible to vote, creating further obstacles down the line. April 1999. Abdelaziz Bouteflika elected president of Algeria with 74% of the vote, following the unexpected resignation of his predecessor, Layamine Zerwal. Bouteflika comes to office facing unanswered questions about his commitment to the Western Sahara cause. July 1999. Mohammed VI assumes the Moroccan throne after the death of his father, King Hassan II. Mohammed shuffles his cabinet, sacking former Interior Minister Idriss Basri, the key architect of Morocco's previous engagement with Western Sahara. February 2000. MINURSO, the UN peacekeeping mission in Western Sahara, releases its provisional list of voters deemed eligible to vote in the referendum. The Frente Polisario feels confident it could win, while Morocco fears it could realistically lose. On the basis of this voter list, Morocco responds by mobilizing a new wave of contested voters and announcing its intention to appeal against every rejected voter. February 2000. Noting the divergent positions of the parties and exasperated by the obstacles to concluding voter registration for the referendum, Secretary General Kofi Annan effectively ends his support for a referendum as a means to resolve the Western Sahara conflict. Instead, he calls upon Baker to re-engage the parties to find negotiated agreement. May 2000. Baker hosts the parties in London for talks to explore autonomy-based solutions to the Western Sahara conflict. This is the first time the parties have met face-to-face for almost 3 years. However, the talks ended acrimoniously. The Frente Polisario refused to give up on a referendum. September 2000. Baker speaks to senior French, American, and British politicians and diplomats to encourage them to convince Morocco to offer a credible proposal for autonomy in Western Sahara. During talks in Berlin, Germany, Morocco signaled a willingness to consider an autonomy-based solution for the first time, but with caveats surrounding Morocco's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Baker asks Morocco to develop a detailed proposal. January 2001. The Paris-Dakar Rally, an off-road endurance event, crosses through the disputed territory and leads to a significant escalation of military tensions between Morocco and the Frente Polisario. Violence is averted at the last minute, but a climate of increased mistrust and bitterness takes hold. June 2001. Baker dismisses Morocco's autonomy plan as neither serious nor credible and designs his own, which comes to be known as Baker Plan 1. It does not offer an independence referendum, instead proposing an autonomous Western Saharan government with some devolved powers, but with Morocco retaining control over foreign relations, defense, security, and justice. Polisario furiously rejects Baker Plan 1, while Morocco welcomes it. August 2001. Baker convenes all the parties except Morocco on his ranch in Pinedale, Wyoming, hoping to strengthen interpersonal dynamics and build momentum towards an autonomy-based solution to the conflict. Algeria and the Frente Polisario only submit substantive comments months later, however, which are highly critical of Baker Plan 1. September 2001. The 9/11 terror attacks on the World Trade Center in New York take place. Algerian President Bouteflika is reportedly the first head of state to call and offer condolences to President Bush. October 2001. Morocco approves contracts to explore for oil offshore of Western Sahara for leading American and French oil firms. November 2001. Algerian President Bouteflika visits Baker in Houston, a first-ever state visit to the US, and expresses interest in the territorial division of Western Sahara, with part of the territory to be administered by Morocco and another part by the Frente Polisario. However, Morocco refuses to consider the proposal after Baker travels to Rabat to present it to King Mohammed VI. February 2002. Annan and Baker call on the UN Security Council to set a clear mandate for one of 4 strategies to resolve the Western Sahara conflict, with Baker threatening to resign if it does not. But his ultimatum has little effect. The UN Security Council passes Resolution 1429 with vague language on the path forward and choosing none of the 4 identified strategies. January 2003. Having spent most of 2002 working on a new proposal, Baker presents what becomes known as Baker Plan 2 to the parties. It offers a 5-year period of self-government for Western Sahara, with significant devolvement of powers to the interim administration, before holding a referendum to determine the territory's final status. All those who could prove continuous residence in the territory since December 1999 would be eligible to vote. The UN Security Council unanimously supports Baker Plan 2. Algeria accepts the plan, but Morocco rejects it, stating that a referendum should now be permanently off the table. The Frente Polisario is initially opposed, but eventually announces its support. May 2003. An Al-Qaeda-affiliated group kills 45 people in a terror attack in the Moroccan city of Casablanca. President Bush releases a statement committing the US to support Morocco in the war against terror, recognizing the country as a close friend of the US. Later in the year, in the margins of the UN General Assembly, Bush assures King Mohammed VI that the US will not impose any solution to the Western Sahara conflict upon Morocco. December 2003. Morocco develops its own counter-proposal to Baker Plan 2, but offering even less self-governance for an autonomous Western Sahara region than Baker Plan 1. It proposes a referendum, but independence is not on the ballot. Morocco sidelines Baker and pitches its counter-proposal directly to the US State Department in Washington, D.C. American diplomats rebuff the plan, insisting that the Moroccans should engage Baker directly. June 2004. After the UN Security Council dilutes its support to Baker Plan 2, again adopting vague language on the way forward. Baker resigns as the UN Secretary General's personal envoy to Western Sahara. After 7 years of efforts to foster a diplomatic solution, proposing numerous plans to determine the final status of Western Sahara, Baker ends his tenure without an agreement.